Small state survival in an era of great power competition, red lines, deterrence collapse, and the unraveling of order. Allow me to introduce our moderator, Liliana Śmiech, Director General for International Affairs of Ludovica University of Public Service, Hungary. Dear moderator, the floor is yours, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this panel discussion on small state survival in an era of great power competition. I'm not going to be alone on the stage, just for a side information. So allow me please to welcome our distinguished speakers. Prime Minister Mehdi Joma, former Prime Minister of Tunisia. President Werner Fasel-Abend, President of the Austrian Institute for European and Security Institute. Thank you. With us also Dr. Małgorzata Bonikowska from Center for International Relations in Poland. And Director General Per Olsson Fritt from the Folke Bernadotte Academy in Sweden. So let me start with a quick introduction to the panel, because for decades I think we can agree that small states relied on the assumption that international law and the broader rules-based order would provide a certain level of protection and predictability for them. And I think nowadays we can say that this assumption is increasingly being questioned. And as geopolitical competition identifies and is more intensified and is repeatedly tested, many smaller states are asking a much more fundamental questions. Not how to operate within such system, but whether the system is still working for them. So let me start with this opening, very general question. Do you feel that this system that we're operating right now still works for the small states, or rather it has quietly stopped delivering? And I would like to start with Prime Minister.
It works like this. Thank you. No, definitely it does not work, and we feel it since a couple of years, but today it accelerates. We feel that the whole system, the governing system, or the governance of the world, which is set up after the Second War, after 1944, is no more fitting the reality on the ground, the economic, demographic, the power, the distribution of power. And it creates many tensions, and we see that today we are accelerating things since the powers who were guaranteeing this system through the institution and through the rules, they are themselves transgressing these rules and this institution. So definitely it's no more. And we regret, even though the previous or the system, the existing system was not as efficient and as balanced and as just as we can imagine, it allows, we are speaking about the small countries, it allows this small country to have a space and this, a sort of shield of law that it's disappearing today. So, and we are wishing today that with all these conflicts, all what we learned since these last conflicts in this last year and even since 44, that we are able to avoid these generalized conflicts, to go through another balanced system which is more corresponding to the reality that we have, because many things that changes. Not only the distribution of power, but the emerging of the arising of the technology, this cross-border phenomena of data, of information, of flows, of supply chains. So all of this imposes a new reality that imposes today to review this global system of governance and institutions.
So we have a definite no, the system is not
Yes.
working. All right. So now I will go to our second speaker, President Vaslaven. Do you agree the system doesn't work anymore? Did it stop delivering?
I think, you have to ask the question, why does it not work anymore? What is the reason behind it? And how long will it last? And I would say the main reason behind it is the power competition between America and China for the number one. As long as there is this very intense power question, who will make the rules in the future? And for the first time, America really is challenged. They will concentrate completely on this question, also China. And this certainly is a reason for them, to prolong a power play until there will be a solution. So if you ask me how long will it last, I would say not just a few years, probably around 1.5, 2.5 decades, which means that until maybe the middle of the century, we will live in a specific situation of this power battle between number one and number two, where the two sides try to take or to bring number three, namely the Russians, at their side, or at least neutralize them. Okay, this is the one side from their point of view. From a global point of view, I would say, of course we need a global system that works, because the world never has been so close to each other, politically, economically, technologically, and so on. And therefore, we need it. And therefore, there has to come a reaction. And it will come. I guess, one of the reasons why the situation is as it is now, of course, is also Donald Trump as a person. This will change more or less pretty soon, at the latest after the end of his term, maybe already a little bit after the November election, but this will not be a final solution. Final solution only can come when we will have a clear decision who is more or less setting the rules for the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will ask a follow-up question afterwards, because I'm actually very interested in your opinion about this American component to this global system. But let me now go to Dr. Bonikowska. I don't know if I already know your answer, but can you please?
Obviously, answer is obvious. I think all of us feel the same. Small is beautiful only when there is a peaceful time. Whereas time of war, time of big powers, small countries or small entities don't matter. And that's exactly what is happening now, which is obviously very dangerous for the world. Because most of the countries in the world, we have around 200 countries on this planet, are not superpowers. Please raise your hand. Who is coming from a superpower from the audience? Okay, 1, 2, great. You feel good about it. But
I doubt. I'm not sure if that's
Okay.
a superpower.
so now the question is, how do you visualize the other countries, which are medium powers, which are smaller countries, or very, very small, to survive with you at this planet? And the history of mankind is very brutal. Small entities were never taken into consideration. But we paid for this very high price. And the whole world realized after the First and the Second World War that that is the dead end. It's a road to nowhere. So if we have this experience, why are we coming back to the era of power, where it's not a power of arguments, it's an argument of power? It will lead us to the same thing. So I would rotate the question, what to do not to go towards this direction, not to allow this really to happen, despite of maybe a fact which was described not only in this panel but also in previous panels, that the largest powers now started a power game. So do we have certain mechanism to somehow stop it? How can we somehow work on the multilateral world order, because it's vanishing? Even our organizations which we created after the Second World War, they are not effective anymore. They are avoided. They are not taken into consideration neither. So, or we find out what to do in such circumstances and how to stop this process to continue, or evidently we are going towards a major list of conflicts, and maybe even to a third world war. It doesn't need to be the same way like it used to be in the 40s. Could be a new type of global war, could be a space war with AI, with drones, etc. But it will bring us a lot of problems, and it will not stop soon. So which future we prefer?
That's a very philosophical question, and I think we know what kind of future we prefer, but the delivery might be a little bit more complicated. Director General, what would be your answer to the opening question about the system? I think we already know, but please give us your Swedish perspective.
Thank you very much, and also for the invitation to participate in this discussion with this distinguished panelists on my side. I mean, we are witnessing now record high number of armed conflicts around the world, and evidently the rule-based world order is in a deep crisis when we can allow that to happen. And we have a number of other global challenges that we, as humanity, are not able to tackle efficiently enough. So, of course, the rule-based world order is in crisis, but it was never perfect. Right? And it was always, there was always a need for development and involvement in the rules-based world order. But maybe to add to my fellow panelists' answer, I would say that the system is still there, with all its cracks and all its shortcomings. It's still there, and it's partly in place to protect small states. But is it protecting us? The answer, of course, is no. Not if we play this game on our own, but if we continue to cooperate, if we continue to build alliances, not just as small states, but as democracies, then there is still a resilience in the system, I think, that can survive. But I would say that the crisis partly is because we've seen decades now of democracy decline globally. And what comes out of that is also a decline or a delegitimizing of our international institutions and rules. As democracies, we tend to respect rules. We tend to respect the outcomes of negotiations. But as ethocracies, countries do not tend to do that. And therefore, we have delegitimized this system. And it comes with less legitimate international institutions, and it comes with a higher number of armed conflicts as a consequence of that. Because we have stopped reproducing those norms and values that this system was built to protect. And maybe we took them for granted. I don't know, there are others that could tell that better than I, but when we stop reproducing the world order, we let might go before right. And that's exactly what we are witnessing today.
Thank you. PM Joma, could neutrality be some kind of an answer to it, especially if we're looking at this kind of fragmented world that we are living in? Or should the countries choose, at the end of the day, a side? Or can they stay neutral? Will this neutrality allow them to survive on the surface, especially if we're talking about the small states?
Thank you. No, I think that we should act all together and to wish and to put all our energy to arise a system or to make the existing system to be adapted to the new reality and to be able to give us a frame that allows us really to restore the value and the force of the law and to avoid the situation where we are today, which is the law of the force. It's not, we cannot survive to that. Each one, even the powerful countries, it's a dream. They think that they can dominate no more. We see it in a concrete example. When any powerful country tries to dominate by the force, by the end it loses. And even we take the example of United States. When you see the history of United States, since we set up this system since the Second War, they win all the soft power wars, all the soft power balance, but not the hard power. And today it's not the way to treat. Yes, we have new reality. We have India, which is 1.5 million. We have China, which is 1.5 million. And even we have local countries. We are speaking about Iran. Iran, it's a 90 million country, respectful country with a civilization. You cannot deal with them just with bombs. So we have to put all our energy to quit this transition. It's normal. It's a transition because we know all of us. We are aware that we have to change, and in each changes there is some of the major actors are feeling that they can lose, so they will struggle to do that. No, the best way is to do it in a fair way, with negotiation, with the dialogue, and we will find an equilibrium. So to answer the question, what we can do as a small states. Some remark, I'm coming from Tunisia. We are maybe small, but we consider that we have huge history and we are an empire. So that's we have to take into account. So, but let's say in this geopolitical game we are small. Of course, we have to be pragmatic and not naive. Neutrality is good, but it's not the currency valid today. We have to see all what we can do to protect ourselves, because it's no more this shield of the law. So the first thing, which is the most important thing before speaking about the means, is the internal cohesion. That's the door really to fragilize and to create vulnerability in any nation, in any country. And we see, if you take even the last example, the war between the United States and Iran, the big mistake was that they evaluated that there is a crack, internal crack, no cohesion, and overnight we can change the regimes. What makes things different is this cohesion, because all the Iranian, even though they don't have the same political side, they are not on the same political side, they are belonging, all of them, and they have a high level of patriotism. So there is some integrity with regard to that. So that's the first immunity that we have to ensure. Second, it's, of course, we have to see for alliance, we have to, an active diplomacy and even a cyber diplomacy today to look for alliances, local or alliances. And you know, when you are a small country, you have to analyze the forces and to make yourself desirable by all these powers, absolute powers, but as well regional powers, and to play the balance and to put yourself in a position where if we want to attack you, you become costly attackable. Really, and that's why, to be honest, to prepare yourself to the war, for this asymmetric war, with all the meaning of that, through the cyber attacks, through this adapted, we see, we have examples today of asymmetric wars with these drones, with all this new technology, and we have to do that. But as well, we have to continue struggling for a new set of law and to arise this system which is more suitable, fitting with the new reality of the technology, of the demography, of the economy, of the financial power distribution, to be able to manage our conflicts or our differences through the institution, to revive, to revitalize the multilateralism that we are losing today.
Can I have a follow-up question regarding the internal cohesion that you mentioned? Is it actually possible to have a 100% internal cohesion in the country? Because I feel like nowadays, with this huge polarization in the countries, I don't really see it. I don't want to generalize, but there are certain situations, especially before elections in many countries, that I'm not sure that politicians are playing for it.
Yes, no, I distinguish between the competition, political competition, and we would like to have the diversity. Otherwise, it's not democracy. No, I'm speaking, but inside that, we have, through the education, through our own history, through our own values, to educate people that when we have a threat, an external threat, we need to be united. And it's possible. It's more than possible. It's mandatory. Without that, you cannot succeed, whatever your power is. So, and all the failure of the small country facing the threats, when you see the origin, is the lack of cohesion. But you have to work on it, you have to teach it. And the problem that we have in our countries today, and mainly in the democracy, that this question is absent. We are in the dispute, political dispute, and we forget the essential. And it happens in this game of political game, we forget the common interest and the long-term interest. That's the first thing. The second thing, what is causing that in some cases, is the lack of a strategic or a vision. And today, if we have to start with something, even before this internal social political cohesion in front of the threats, is to have a vision. And in the vision, you will analyze everything and determine which are the threats and how to face these threats and how to mitigate the risk. And one of them is to teach people, to educate, and to prepare them for these threats with the cohesion.
Thank you very much. President Václav, do we have the vision in Europe?
Yeah, I think we do have a vision. I mean, it's quite comfortable for a country like Austria not to stand alone, but to belong to a group of states, 27 members of European Union. And our country does have 9 million inhabitants, but we are not the smallest one, by far not. We are in the middle, if you look at our population or at the GDP of Austria. And this does mean, if you cooperate closely, if you belong to an organization, you can feel secure, you will have your place at the table, and you also can take part at the shaping of the politics. And this is very, very important. Because, as I said, of course we need rules, we need solutions for the future. Just think or take the example of Africa. When United Nations was founded, there was only a handful of independent African states. Now we have more than 50. And look at the important role United Nations had, especially in Africa. And so far I think, maybe the role of United Nations in Europe will not be of exorbitant size or importance, but in other regions this will be very, very important. And for us, of course, it's also quite important to have a rule-based system. And therefore, of course, Europe will try to become more independent, as it used to be in the past. And this will not be the only consequence. What I see is, that potential global powers like European Union or India probably will cooperate closer than they did before, because they will not accept just rules given by others. And the same middle powers will do. And insofar, you have to look at the situation that also America, China, and Russia together are from the population round about a quarter of the world. If you take the military power, it's maybe half or even more, okay? But this is not everything. And insofar, I'm absolutely convinced there will be an order. And the tendency now is when the three big, strongest powers will not provide an order from their side, the others will find an order. And of course, also smaller and medium-sized countries will make their contribution. We will have an order in the future, not functioning perfectly as it did not also in the past, but it will work and it will be in our favor.
Thank you. Dr. Bonikowska, if we look at the current geopolitical context in Europe and the cohesion that we are just discussing, did this geopolitical context in Europe rather showed more cohesive context, or we can see certain differences within the member states more clearly now?
Both, I would say, because it is a paradox of this kind of situations where we are during the very strong wind, the storm, which is here mentioned by our organizers, because it gives a lot of chances as well. It's not only a pity, maybe it's also a chance to correct the system. But the system has to be somehow in place. We can compare it to a revolution which cars brought to the mankind. You know, when the cars appeared, everybody was using the car as they wanted. But with so many cars at the roads, we had to create some rules and order. And until today, I think more or less we all agree that it's better because there are so many cars that even for the biggest cars, the trucks, the order on the road, it makes sense for them as well. So I think European Union can be analyzed from both the angles. It's not only from the angle that it works for small countries, medium or small, or even the smallest like Malta, because it does. It's obvious that it does because it's a multilateral project per se. Meaning, for the first time in history of Europe, which was a continent of constant wars and constant powers, which were fighting each other, and finally they brought 2 world wars to the whole world, we were able to achieve not only equilibrium, but also a way of reorganizing the relationship between the countries, that it's not only the big, but also the small countries matter. Like, for example, we have, I don't know, Roberta Metsola, who is a president of the European Parliament, and she comes from Malta, the smallest EU member state. Or we had, until recently, Hungary, who was constantly blocking the most important decisions of the EU, which was a big challenge for all of us. But we also had, let's say, recently Belgium, who is also a small country, which is a small country, who is until today challenging the rest of the EU bloc vis-à-vis the Russian allocated money, you know, assets who are still in Europe, but we still could not decide about giving it to Ukraine. So small countries, even the smallest, matter in this project, which could be a good example for the rest of the world. But my point is that this works for the biggest as well. Let's look at Germany, let's look at France, let's look at Italy, 3 member states who founded the European project. They did it, especially France at that time, to make peace in the continent, but also to make growth. And then now we have 27 members, and obviously, let's be very frank, the leading countries, the biggest economies, and the most important countries by population, and also by, you know, military-wise, like France, it's the only EU country that has nuclear weapons. Obviously, their influence on this organization is higher. We can quote European Parliament. Germany has 96 members of parliament, while Malta has 6. So it's a big difference. But the biggest countries also make a profit of being under these rules. Why? Because at the end of the day, it makes sense for them in the long run. They don't need to attack everyone. They don't need to, you know, expand military-wise. They can put things on the question and make an agreement. They can build alliances. And they can also expand economically, like enlargement. By the way, in the case of Armenia is also a good thing to remember that enlargement is not only political project, it's also economic project. It gives a lot of profits to those who open the doors for newcomers. It's not only the profit for the countries who enter. So the big also profit by being under certain rules. And I think this could apply now to the game of power we are facing. Let's question, for example, China. China is profiting from the multilateral order, and I think the Chinese are very much aware of that. US, the same was in the case of the US. US was also profiting about being the kind of a dominating power in all senses, but not by force, but by the position the US got in a certain moment. So why to lose all that and go into expanding or using force? Because what you get in reward is an opposition, a very strong opposition, and in the long run, problems for you as well. As a big power, if you are a big truck on the road and start to violate all the rules, sooner or later you will create a traffic jam. And in this traffic jam, you yourself will be stuck. That's exactly what happened in the Gulf. The big reacted, and now everybody is stuck at the big itself. Don't do that.
I think we should send this message to the leaders. Actually, you inspired me to the next question that I would like to ask Director General Fried. Do actually smaller countries, and I'm sorry that it will be my last question focusing on the European Union, but do smaller countries shape the policy? Can they shape the certain decisions inside the EU? Because we actually heard a couple of good examples. So my question is actually, do they have a strong influence?
Yes, absolutely. And it's not just in the EU, it's in all international cooperation. Small states can influence decision making. It can, it's very possible to punch above your weight. But it requires investment, and it requires cooperation, and it requires diplomacy. And small states who are successful know that. But the answer is, of course, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I was just wondering because Dr. Bonikowska mentioned one of the, I'm actually representing the institution that is located in this country, Hungary. And it's exactly what you said, of course, you can agree or disagree with the almost previous government, but it's exactly what you said. I think there are certain countries that are rather small, but they are not playing in its own weight. I think, if we look at their influence, or at least like the, in a way, trial to influence, I think that's quite something. So that was my question regarding the small states, not just in Europe, but all around the place. Thank you.
Let's be very frank, that this order or correction of the world system is necessary, and obviously global South countries may not be happy with the order which was created after the Second World War, rightly, fair enough, let's correct it, but no one likes world without order, because it creates problems for everybody. So the world order will not be decided by only small states. We need big powers to realize that. And I think the challenge is this one, that now we have certain big powers who don't realize that.
Maybe also this example, you asked for the influence of small states. The smallest state within European Union is Luxembourg. It does not even have 500,000 inhabitants. But I think it had already 3 times the president of the Commission. So it really was at the very top of the organization. And it certainly influenced also the politics quite a bit. Why? Because they engaged themselves. They knew that they could not do almost anything being located between France and Germany and Belgium, okay? So far, they really invested into the organization. And that's what we should do. If you really try to have influence, of course you have to start with yourself. I think the most important thing will be partnership. And partnership is a word, you know, that comprises not only a good relation with others, but also your own stance. You have to develop your own stance and then go to the others and try to bring it in. Give and you will be given. This is the principle. And this works out. Of course, we also have to admit size matters. Bigger countries generally will have bigger influence than very small ones. But you can make your share. This is the important message you have. And what you get is, of course, also all the protection. Just look, you know, when Donald Trump is, I don't know, raising the tariffs for the import of goods 25%, 50%, 100%. What would you do as a country with 5 or 10 million people? Hardly anything you can do. But when you are a member of a union that consists out of 450 million people, okay, there is some weight. And then you can also give a response in such a situation. And this is the big difference. And this means that we have to work on not only on cooperation, but on partnership. We have to defend also international organizations as long as they are working. And we have to try, you know, to activate ourselves. As long as you are just following the principles other nations more or less will present to you, then you will not have any influence. And I think quite a few nations now have learned that it will be necessary to change it, to go your own way, to lessen dependencies on others. And I only can admire, really I have to say this, Armenia, in such a situation the country was in history, to find a new way, to be able, you know, to take the consequences. Because you also have to be aware not only for politics, but also for economy. Your neighbors will be absolutely important. May I tell you also, once again, an example from my own home country. We have two big neighbors. This is Germany. Round about 1/3 of our exports go to Germany, imports the same. Number 2 is Italy, also a bigger state. And we have a lot of smaller states, Switzerland, Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary, Slovenia. And the small states, they all together only have between 35 and 40 million inhabitants. But their importance for our trade is higher than the trade with America, with China, with Russia, with India and Japan together. Why? Why? Because, of course, almost all our countries do have small and medium-sized companies. Only big companies can go overseas, but also small and medium-sized companies can go cross-border. And insofar, it is very important, you know, to shape your own environment. And this means, you know, not only to have neighbors and to live in good neighborhood, but if it is possible, to go into an institution that can make common rules for all of them. And then it will work. Insofar, we have enough reasons, you know, to go into the future with quite some self-awareness, but also not a self-awareness, but also the impression that we have to activate ourselves. Do something and you will see there will be consequence. A consequence of your own doing. Go forward, bring your own organization forward, and you will have influence.
Thank you. Director Fried, you were waiting patiently, so please, the floor is yours.
No, but thank you. Maybe also I feel an urge to say that, I mean, international law reflects not necessarily how the world, you know, of today works, but maybe perhaps more how we want it to work. So it's a reflection of our common aspirations, right? And multilateralism in that sense is us. It's not someone else or somewhere else. And I think it's time for small states to also, and small and medium-sized states to also acknowledge that their national interest is international cooperation. And this is what my colleagues here in the panel are saying. Even imperfect multilateralism is better than how things are evolving at right now as we speak. But multilateralism has always been a dynamic of individual states, you know, going, you know, taking the lead, or coalition of the willing, taking initiatives, and the reliance on international and multilateral institutions to facilitate and to work. So we always had that type of dynamic. And alliances, corporations have never been more important than now. We need to reshape them in order for them to function for us, because I think multilateralism is foremost, it has a function for us, right? But there is also a certain point, and I think maybe this is my call to small and medium states. There's a certain point when a reaction to a trend becomes part of the trend. And so if we don't want more democracy decline, if we don't want more big powers deciding over us, we have to stop playing someone else's game as well. And we can see that in terms of how all of us are putting national interests before multilateral interests or international interests. We can see it in the arms race. You know, we participate in the arms race and we call it a reaction to someone else's arms race, but we're part of that arms race as we do it. And it comes in withdrawal from international conventions, or the hesitation to act on climate change. We become part of a trend, and that's a choice we have to make. It's no longer a reaction to someone else's actions. It's our actions, and we form that trend together. And just to build on your story of traffic, you know, you're never stuck in traffic. You are traffic, right? And when you have traffic accidents, you don't throw out all the rules, right? You reshape them. And I think this is a wake-up call to small, medium states. You know, if we want another order, we have to shape that order. We cannot sit, you know, back and wait for someone else to shape it. It's not the time for reactions, it's time for actions. And if we unite, be it in the Nordic region, in the European region, be it in the ECOWAS region in Western Africa, or on IGAD on East Africa, and SADC in Southern Africa, if it's ASEAN, or if it's right here where we are at the moment in South Caucasus, I mean, if we come together and decide on what type of play, what type of playbook, what type of rules do we want to have, we can shape them.
And following maybe one more thing which is known for, you know, ancient times, but maybe it's worth quoting, that not always the biggest wins. No. It's David and Goliath's story. Sometimes, you know, when you are small and you are pushed to the wall, you start to be very creative and you change strategy because you have no other way. You cannot play the game of the big because you don't have cards, but you can play some other game. And I think this is an interesting moment Europe is also in. We have also realized that we cannot continue the game we were playing before. So we have to reorganize our thinking. And that's the moment we realize that, it's the beginning of a good change, because we are starting to create, to look for new rules, new methods, new ways that we, which are not the biggest, which is not, sometimes we are the smallest even in the group, but we have chances to prevail.
I'm sorry. I need to I need to cut you right now because we have more or less 10 minutes left. So I will just ask a very last question from my side to our dear panelists, and then I will give the floor to the audience. So you will have now a couple of minutes to think about the question that you would like to ask to our panelists. So my, in a way, closing question to you would be, because, you know, we have all of these ideas that we should act, you know, this is the moment, we can shape the ideas. We are the traffic, we are not stuck in traffic. So what comes next? President, you have mentioned that there will be kind of a reaction, there must be a reaction. So my question would be to all of you, and I would like to start with Prime Minister, like what comes next and what should be the reaction?
No, what comes next, I think that we are learning, and you know, this game is made by the powerful country, the most powerful country, and even we are expecting, we are a force of influence, but it will happen when they realize that the chance and the only solution for everyone is to recognize the chance and the right to everyone to exist, and to raise a system which is more balanced, or let's say to upgrade the existing system. My own opinion today is what we are living. We lived many examples these last 2 decades. The war in Iraq, in Afghanistan. We saw what happens in Gaza. We was all silent about this double standard and the problem as though we generate today in Iran. I think that even the powerful country will get the lessons from that. That we can be the powerest in the world, and we can beat, we can bomb, we can kill, we can dominate, but we can lose. And we certainly lose. If you see what is happening today, maybe we will not lose the military battle, but we will lose on other fields, on economy, on finance, on the social, on the problems, on the conflicts, on the internal political conflicts. Many problems could emerge. We saw what happens in Iraq. 20 years after, we were there arguing that we are bringing democracy. No, we destroyed the country. And we offered the country to be a field to generate other conflicts. One of them we are living in. So the next, I think, it's the lessons that will be retained, and after these conflicts, I don't believe that we will go through a generalized conflict, because we have enough weapons to destroy the life on the earth. So we will not go on that, but these big powers should have that experience, and they are having their experience, and I think we cannot avoid a table all around to discuss and to find a solution to be more calm. And those small countries have proven, even in unbalanced organization like the multilateralism that we have till now, that even through that we are able to federate our force of influence and to progress in the way that we consider it's in our interest.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President.
Yeah, let's take the example of United Nations. Of course, nobody will be able to make a very effective organization out of it as long as the permanent members of the Security Council will have veto power. Okay, will it bring anything if there is another permanent member? No, it will be the same case, just with one more member. But what could be an alternative? If the permanent members do not want to act or to react in a specific situation, I could imagine that a group of countries, let me just state a few examples, as I have said already: European Union, India, Japan, Turkey, Brazil, others, just take the names, you know. If they can organize a common statement in a specific case, also America or Russia or China cannot just go over it. Nobody, even the strongest, cannot do anything if they are isolated. But this will not be a perfect solution. But maybe it will bring us a little bit closer that people should act and would act, and that the organization can do something in some specific case. Just wait and do nothing will not be a solution. Maybe this proposal is not effective. I don't know, I'm not a specialist for United Nations. But just try to find a solution that could bring, or that could change the situation effectively, at least in some very important situation. And I'm sure this will be possible.
Thank you. Dr. Banikowska.
Well, I don't know. As I said, it's a very difficult moment we are living in, because it's always easier to live in a situation in historic times where there is certain order. Even during the Cold War, there was a very bad time, but there was certain order. And in a way it was easier, because people knew, and also political leaders knew, what the game was there to play. So I think in that particular moment we are living, there are two things necessary. Really enormous creativity in political domain. We are so creative in business. We are so creative in new technologies. What about politics? What about solving, what about proposing something which would be an upgrade for 21st century reality? So creativity which would go with the flow of people's minds, of the situation in the world, of the changing realities, because technology changes also people, and people make politics. So we have to somehow think about political innovations, political creativity, in order to, and that's the second thing, the values we based our thinking on. The values understood as a base, which we all agree we want to go for this direction, to achieve. Something which motivates all of us could be, for example, to create a better or more stable world for next generations, for our children. If we agree at least on that we want really to do that in politics, not to win with somebody or to attack somebody or to block someone or be bigger or smaller, but what kind of future we want to create for our children or grandchildren. If we can agree that that is a value we are all working upon, maybe we will find some creative answer to this very complex reality we are facing.
Thank you. And Director Fried, and I'm so sorry, but I was just informed that we should be finishing already, so no pressure at all, but...
Thank you. I'll be short. I think, today we can see we're all affected by conflict. You know, conflicts that are at our borders or further away. It leads to, vulnerabilities for our national security, for food security, for energy security, economic security, and it affects all countries, big or small. And therefore, I think that eventually we will come to a point where we again need to find some predictability in how we operate and govern this planet and this world. And I think, to a certain extent, you can be pragmatic, right? But we heard in one of the opening statements yesterday that pragmatism can never be an excuse for double standards. And I think eventually we will come to understand that. And I think, therefore, the next step is somehow to start, and we have already started, with this discussion and with a lot of other discussions going on. How do we again come back to stability and predictability? And when we have that, we can again start thinking of what we aspire for. We can reiterate what we aspire for. And I think when we look at that, we will find most of it already in agreed language that we have already agreed on in different forums and in different conventions. But I think I want to end with that it comes to all of us continuing or deciding to work tirelessly to achieve that, to continue to continue to reproduce these norms and values and rules, because they are not there for granted. They are there as long as we believe in them and as long as we make them real. So that aspiration and that tirelessly work is something that we can do, knowing that it will never be perfect. But let's keep working on them. That's how they work. And it starts with all of us. Small states definitely have a crucial role, especially working together. And this is the last call. Continue to work together.
Thank you very much. And I'm really sorry to the audience because I promised you the Q&A session. Unfortunately, the time is brutal and unfair. So I would like to, from this point, thank our dear speakers for a great panel. Please join me in thanking them. And hopefully we will maybe have like an informal Q&A session after the panel. Thank you very much, and I'm wishing you a lovely evening.
We take a family photo.